Hi, everyone. My name is Henry, and I am it's difficult to define me, but I was trained as a structural engineer. So I'm very much far away from that whole world of digital and a blockchain and token, but I'm really, really excited to entwine those two worlds because I'm more a professional from the physical world. My passion is about building things that are material, building things that are actually tangible. And I will actually share some of the entrepreneurial adventures and insight that I've been experiencing over the last 12 months. This is by no means a one-way conversation. So if you have any questions, any comment, please feel free to either raise them in the chat or by unmuting yourself. All comments are welcome, and I would love to discuss more and reflect together because I would assume that the crowd that we have here is very much entrepreneurial. Probably there's many founders amongst you. So I would love to hear more of your insight and introspection on this too. So without further ado, I'd like to share my screen here. Which one is it? Sorry. Let me try again. So share screen, and I will go here. Screen 2. Okay. So there we go. Control L. Okay. So thank you very much, everyone. I've decided to entitle the talk, the discussion actually, Sailing in Entrepreneurial Waters, because I've always been passionate about stories coming from the storms, coming from the sea. I've always loved reading about pirates and explorations. And I think that being an entrepreneur is very much about exploring. It's about placing yourself out of your comfort zone and making yourself available for new discoveries, which is what sailors have been doing all over the centuries. So one thing actually I'm sure about in this variable world is that I've always loved building. This is a picture I recently found from my parents. It's me, baby, at 5, already assembling like foam blocks together. And 25 years later, I'm still building, I'm still designing, I'm loving it. And this is actually one of the largest 3D printed sculptures that had been printed so far 2 years ago for the Venice Biennale of Architecture. So chapter number 1, learning how to sail on big ships. So I suppose that I've been quite lucky to receive an education back in France. I've studied in a school called École des Ponts, which is a great school teaching us like how to do like really hardcore science. I used to study like 15 hours of math per week, 15 hours of physics. And what the school system teaches you is very much to learn a trade and then work for a company, which is absolutely not what entrepreneurs do. But I suppose that I fell into the mold and I decided to embark on a ship. I was part of the crew. I was a small sailor on board of this big ship, which is my first company, the first company I joined, which is Arup. Arup is mainly known for building the Sydney Opera House in Australia, the Beijing Bird's Nest, but most locally for the people in London too. You might hear them from the London Eye or the Gherkin. Anyways, I jumped on board this big ship, and this took me all over the world. I was an intern for a year in Beijing. I worked with them in New York. Then they asked me, as my visa was expiring, to join their mothership in London. And I suppose that as an employee, you are asked to be very much an expert in one field. So I was taught how to be good at 3D modeling and parametric design. So I'm taking the time to explain like how Grasshopper and Rhino works This is a beautiful piece of software that is used across many, many industries to model things, from the small scale jewelry to modeling like big scale infrastructures and airports. The logic is very much important. It's a parametric design, which means that it's very much like if you go from a stupid calculator that doesn't record anything to Excel. On Excel, you build a logic, and as soon as you change the input, the results will update automatically. Here, it's very much the same. Rather than drawing by hand, you define a geometry, you define a logic for your geometry. Let's say I want roof beams every 10 meters, and as soon as actually your outline plan changes, the output will change too. So learning that skill as a sailor on the big ship opened me the doors of many projects. I was very lucky to take part in a 600-meter tall tower that you can see on the top right. I teamed up with Fosters and Partners and was responsible for form finding the early roof of the Mexico City airport that you might recognize at the bottom right. Most recently, I worked with Zaha Hadid Architects a year ago to create that roof on the top left. And you might soon see in the news the Oman Botanical Garden being built in Oman, which is formed of long arching steel beams. So that tool, that expertise also led me to play with robots. Here you might recognize actually the Venice Pavilion at the Biennale. I also recently played with deforming aluminum panels to create free-form geometry using 5-axis robotic arm. And actually one of the next projects, which I'm not going to talk about, is going to be 3D printing a concrete shell in Croatia. So all in all, it's been a great adventure with Arup, which has taken me from really big infrastructure projects, teaching me that expertise tool, 3D modeling in parametric design, to also like charity work, which I've delivered in Kenya. Actually, that was actually a school that we built for 400 children. So after actually sharpening my weapons, understanding better my skills and what I liked in life, I decided to jump off the big ship and try to sail on my own. I took a sabbatical approximately 12 months ago, and I thought that I could be the captain of my own ship, which is very much what many of you guys have done, perhaps actually more successfully than this particular chapter. But I thought, okay, well, my passions in life are about, and passion I think is very important to be driving you to wake up in the morning and spend easily 13 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. So based on those two passions of my co-founder and I, we decided to create a company called Cocoon. It only takes £12 to register a company in the UK. It takes an hour only. So we registered it and we imagined it to be a network of architectural retreats that would be spread around the world in natural, beautiful places. And this is actually the time I met Michael Healy, the co-founder actually of the whole unconference that we're experiencing right now. So based on that, my flatmates told me, well, I've got actually this perfect project for you. My flatmate was actually living, had his family living in the north of England in this beautiful UNESCO heritage site called the Lake District. So he said, well, move to my parents' house, which you can see on the right-hand side, which is an 800-year-old castle, and work on that first project of this whole global network. So that's actually what I did. I jumped onto the train, and for 2 months, I lived this castle life, which for some might be incredibly romanticized. The reality is that the castle was extremely cold and known for being the most haunted in the UK. Anyways, So that was all fine. That's, you can see actually the beautiful office that I had with my ex-girlfriend at the time. And that was a project. That was the first project of Cocoon. It is this small boathouse built 200 years ago by itself on a lake. It's probably the largest lake in the UK with only one building around it. And we were meant to make it, transform it and restore it into an off-grid retreat for people to escape from the city and relax, resource themselves. It went actually very well for the first month. That took us actually approximately to October. The planners were on board, despite the site being extremely tricky. It's a triple SI, meaning that we had to go through the Natural England Association, the Environmental Agency, loads of intricacies in the planning of that heritage structure. But we made beautiful visuals, and we were actually gearing up for a crowdfunding campaign. When chapter 3, the storm starts to hit. So far, we had actually a few volunteers that were giving their time, and they were all very, very passionate about this project of ours. They were supporting the project and pushing it forward. But unfortunately, 4 months down the line, we realized that we had actually built that startup on really shallow foundations. The fact that we were relying too much on volunteers, for instance. One of our press releases leaked, and as you can see here, out of 142 comments, only 3 were positive. All of them were saying, get those hipsters like away from our landscape. They're going to spoil our like natural landscape. So it was quite a hard actually hit by this wave. Some of the volunteers also turned their back against us. Our friend Richard, which I'm not going to reveal fully in name, was starting to perhaps be a bit drunk on that Saturday evening and starting to be very rude against me. And all in all, self-isolation before actually the COVID pandemic, being by myself alone in this in this beautiful nature, but very much self-isolated before the global self-isolation was very difficult. On top of which, I had to divorce with my co-founder, with which vision was starting to split. And the cherry on the cake was that my girlfriend dumped me at the same time. So December 2019 was one of the shittiest, but at least, well, that's actually pretty much the state of my mind. I was wrecked. The Cocoon ship had sunk. I was lucky to be still sane in my mind, and I had to actually reflect. So I took the Christmas holidays to reflect and to really think, what's drawing me? I think that as entrepreneurs, very much like people being drawn by the sea, there's this deep call inside ourselves, being slapped, being failing actually, from time to time. We always get back on our feet. Same, divorce, shutdown, crash. Thank you, Omar. Well, it's tough, and that's actually, I was recently reading that startup CEOs actually, like half of them are actually facing depression, and I was very much flirting with depression back in time in December. So I completely shut off, pull myself out of this machine that I was continuing fueling with my energy and my time for the last 6 months, and decided to reflect on what actually made sense for my life. And I made myself a life plan, just like you would do a business plan. Some people also do life plans. And I've asked myself, okay, what kept me sane was my design. I loved designing. I actually was really, really inspired by the collaboration, that energy coming from the team, from sharing ideas and collaborating. So I got back onto another ship and built one, which was called the Collective A. The collective A is a design studio, which is very much actually the skill that I learned on the big ship. It's a design studio which was meant to be a community of like-minded artists, designers, engineers who wanted to take part in competitions, projects, and build together a world that would be perhaps the reflection of a more social thinking that we all shared. So we had actually a first project, which was this tower in the north of Spain. We also took part in a competition in North London called the Ante Pavilion. And we also even started actually gaining momentum and reaching out to clients. We reached out to collaborators within the architectural world. We reached out to private clients who wanted us to design their London home extension. And it all went well until actually March 2020, when the second global storm actually hits. This time the storm was much bigger. I was mentioning about projects that we were doing. Well, one of them was actually a 40-meter glass dome on top of a cruise ship. And as you all know, the cruise industry went terribly bad, and no one wanted to be locked with 200 or 300 other people on a ship. So that project, which was meant to take us through the next 8 months in terms of finance, got totally cancelled. And that's that time we actually realized, well, we need to react. How to react? So among those stormy dark clouds, there was a beam of hope, which we called actually Luz. I immediately called a few creative friends of mine, whether in London or even actually one in Spain, and together we responded. We wanted to respond creatively to the pandemic, the whole lockdown situation, by embodying through our creativity and through a design piece. We wanted to respond and embody that realization that the world, as we know it, is not just digitally connected, it's very much physically connected. And that's why the virus got spread so fast. So based on that, being self-conscious and wanting to invite people to self-isolate, we decided to design a 3D puzzle. So using that skill, Grasshopper, being able to actually design, to manufacture, that I scripted a code that would take a random point cloud, project it onto a sphere with all its connectivity. Connectivity is a very important key topic for us. And then from that 3D sphere, it would lay down the pieces of that puzzle, 100 in total, adding all the details of it, the numbering, and nest them, pack them within the cutting sheets so that design for manufacture is all streamlined. If we were to change the input and say, let's say for one client, we want to embed its their birth or date of birth in terms of the genome of the randomization of the point cloud, then the whole thing will create actually a set of cutting sheets that will be unique. So we went through, this is all remotely, by the way. So we obviously had to do prototypes. Within a week, we managed to do 3 rounds of prototyping. You can see that the first one was using like automobile car parts, the one that the kind of plastic plugs that are used to fix plastic parts of the inside of your car. Then we use like small nylon screws and nuts, but the aesthetic wasn't very pleasing. It looks actually too much like a virus. And then prototype number 3 was the one that we just had to slightly fine tune in order to make work. So that's pretty much actually how my living room turned into a puzzle factory. My flatmates hate me for that. But you can see actually some of the team that we have been meeting twice a week with all the energy. We've got a doctor, Irene, from Spain. We've got Mona, who's a set designer. We've got Oliver, who's a photographer. And that team, although we are maybe not very experienced in e-commerce, we have been actually tackling basically the waves after wave. We've been sailing on that small boat, and so far we haven't capsized. So that's the first batch of 60 puzzles that we received. It took us some time to kind of do the whole supply chain, because obviously in lockdown, most of the businesses are either idle or actually just ghosted. So it took us some time to find out the right laser cutter, the right paper manufacturer, the right envelope supplier. All in all, we also actually created a website using our design skills. And speaking about design, I like to kind of take like a small break. I've been reading a lot about design and entrepreneurs, and it seems like designers are very much built for entrepreneurship because they are used to resolving problems on a multi-dimensional scale without actually losing sight of the final goal, which is very much pleasing the clients. So applying the same kind of design thinking, but not just for a project, but also to build a startup actually from the ground up in 4 weeks. We then actually started assembling it and actually creating our own promotional video. So you might be seeing actually just flashes of that video, but this is us assembling our marine blend puzzle. So imagine actually receiving 10 sheets of thick quality card in an A3 envelope. You detach each piece carefully, and using the clip-in pins, you assemble those 100% like recycled fiber pieces in order to create that basically that lampshade, which was very close to our heart, since we didn't want it to be chucked away as a puzzle. This is actually some of the photo shoot that we had to improvise using iPhones only to get ourselves onto the markets. And this is actually where I am at. I haven't had the time to really reflect, but I would love to hear your feedback on those adventures. What was your first experience? We still have like a few minutes to chat. And you might have noticed that the small progress bar at the bottom with the little ship here has just expanded, because I suppose that very much like entrepreneurship is not something that you get to learn at school. It's, I feel, something that is born with you, that inner energy and drive to create things, to hopefully like make a small impact in that world. And the sea is still very big for us to explore. But so far, it's been a very exciting journey, and I'm really thankful for everyone that has been following me on those crazy adventures. And thank you very much for your kind attention. Any questions?
How did I have a question?
Yes, Omer.
I had the exact same 120 days of insanity where I could write. Someone from Netflix told me I should write a script on it.
Really?
Because anything that could possibly go wrong went wrong. It was like,
oh wow.
But so I'm sitting in mid-March and thinking about what to do. And so I basically and I couldn't, one of my problems was I couldn't briefly describe a plan, right? And everybody thought that was something because I was thinking too much. I decided to write a manifesto across my travels of 4 countries, noticing different businesses, entrepreneurs, and medical science seemed to be a cause that was screaming out to me.
Yes.
Weirdly enough, so just like you, I actually wrote a pandemic research essay back in 2007. So not timely, but last year I got the CEO to restructure the infectious disease program just because I had a sense of swine flu in China.
Mm-hmm.
And that team called me on the same day and said they had had a breakthrough against coronavirus.
Wow.
And so I'm thinking, well, everything in my life, like everything is shutting down because I came here for a fashion tech business, fashion business to pull it up. And there, the stress of a pandemic showed me the principle and value conflict between myself and the other co-founder again,
Yeah.
whereas this one systematically went with the flow of the beta, which is to not take advantage, but address the actual flow and find. So our treatment may not be, we don't know, there's a lot of science going in, but definitely our methodology, which was designed for animals, is by far the
Yes.
best solution that is possible in proposals. And now I'm using my dual residency as a result of those 120 days to get grants from both countries because I was stranded in, I'm Canadian. I was for a while. So like, just like you, where I was sitting down going what to do. And it started from like a manifesto. And
It's really actually amazing. Like I suppose that that's why actually I'm really feeling very lucky to be speaking with this community because like entrepreneurship is very much a mindset of being able to respond to the actual time. It's very much like what artists used to talk about through their art all over the centuries. And as entrepreneurs, we have the perhaps duty to address the market, and the market is responding to actually a social and economical context, which we have to then adapt to and be aware of our times. So it's a really exciting world, and there's no going back. Like once you sail on a small ship, there's no going back onto a big one.
and what was the great thing was, up until March, the constant thing is, hey, why don't you just get a job, right? It's the easy answer to the problem.
Yes.
But suddenly, because of the shutdown, those voices stop because there's no employment anywhere.
Mm.
So now you focus on engineering a solution versus or dreaming up a solution,
Yes.
and because one has to guide the other.
Absolutely.
It's been yeah, and I mean, I don't know whether it passes or fails, but I'm not attached to, obviously efforts are attached to making it succeed.
Yes.
At the same time, it gives you a purpose, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The purpose of like waking up in the morning and just like believing in that dream. And what I found actually most perhaps inspiring was also the answer from my teammates, collaborators. It's one thing to know very, very strongly that your idea is going to succeed, but being able to share that vision with another team and having them feed and fuel your endeavors is something that I would probably not have achieved by myself. So that's why actually like co-founders, obviously my previous experience with a co-founder was not that good, but whether it's a co-founder or teammates, I think that the teamwork is super, super important, at least for my personal experience. Is there any other like comments or questions from all of these actually these dark screens? I see some clapping here. All right, it might be actually the time. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, Marie. Oh, Eleni?
Yes. I was wondering, how do you find the response of people when you were contacting all those suppliers during COVID time? Like, did you feel that they wanted to help, or did you feel that they were more skeptical about it, or did you experience both?
That's interesting. So some of them were obviously like trying to stay afloat as a business. So some of them were very, very much welcoming. Some of those thought that it was actually not worthwhile an idea, and yeah, so I received actually both kinds of answers, but I suppose that the negative ones are just like an extra motivation to reach out to 5 more, hopefully finding the like one small the one small like golden chip in that sea of opportunities. I think that gold diggers back in the days of the great far west were very much entrepreneurs too.
To be honest, every time someone says why not this, right? Just on the cliche side, I just not attack like one-on-one, but just in my mind, I'm like, you just really didn't get it. Because, and to validate their argument, I'll address it with a specialist on that particular side, just so I'm clear that I'm not just being in my own fool's paradise, right?
Yes, it's important actually. Like market research, we've been very bad at doing market research, but it's one of the first tests. You want to receive feedback on your ideas and test it as soon as possible. But anyways, Omer, thank you very much for that nice conversation. Yeah, nice meeting you.
Great. Pleasure meeting you.
Sounds good. And best of luck for your endeavors. I'll stop sharing the screen and give the stage to the next speaker then. Thank you, everyone.